Prospects are on the way. Before we get to those, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got all of Wednesday's action up next. Get hyped, Scotty. We've got more prospects coming. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, September 8th. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White. Today on the show, we do have prospects, but unfortunately the bad news, Max Scherzer officially placed on the IL. We'll try and look for replacements. No guarantees there. We will get to Josh Jung and Alec Burleson getting called up in the next coming days. The New York Aces showed up and much more. But let's jump in.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh my goodness gracious, Scotty. Where would you like to start?
I'd like to start in a bad place, if we can, if you'll allow it.
I will.
That bad place is Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan is the bad place. The Yankees messed him up here on Wednesday. 4 earned runs in 4 innings. Gave up a home run. Uncharacteristically had 4 walks. So that obviously contributed to the bad line more than the home run did. But the home runs are a problem for Joe Ryan. I was looking at this because he is an extreme fly ball pitcher. Among pitchers with at least 110 innings, Joe Ryan has the second highest fly ball rate. I believe first highest is Christian Javier. So ton of fly balls that would seem to make him vulnerable. That would presumably make him vulnerable to the home run, right? At the beginning of the season, when he looked like a world beater, he wasn't. April and May, Joe Ryan had allowed he allowed just 0.6 home runs per 9 innings in April and May. Really good home run rate. Since April and May, he's allowed 1.9 home runs per 9 innings. Really bad home run rate. And if you'll remember, Frank, the listener, April and May is when nobody was hitting much of anything, home run or otherwise. So as the environment improved, as the weather heated up, as the humidor stopped suppressing power production so much, Joe Ryan became vulnerable to it in a way that's explained by his fly ball rate. So I don't want to throw him in the trash. He still has good starts pretty often too. 2 bad ones in a row here. The previous 3 were all good. But like when things go wrong for him, he tends to put up a crooked line like this, and it's pretty frustrating. I don't think you can rely on him down the stretch. I think you'll want to implement him cautiously. And if you don't use him at all, that's fine. I still think it's a bad idea to drop him because it could come back to bite you if your opponent picks him up. But yeah, my faith in Joe Ryan right now is not particularly high. I mean, look, he still has a good whip because it keeps the walk rate down. Still more than the strikeout per inning, but yeah, kind of dangerous.
Yeah, he sure is, Scott. I mean, you read my mind when you were talking about the home runs going up from June on, basically. That coincides with the weather heating up, and really we thought offense would go up because of the humidors that were installed in all the ballparks, and they did. Offense did go up, and as a result, Joe Ryan has not been great over his last 15 starts. There is a 10 earned run start in there. I mentioned that every time I bring this up. But during that time, he's got a 5.01 ERA. Over a strikeout per inning is good, but now 17 homers allowed, nearly 2 home runs per 9, Scott, which you mentioned. It's like 1.9. Yeah. It's really tough. So he's still 94% rostered. His next 2 starts are against the Royals and at the Guardians. Start against the Royals. Yeah, I mean, I could, in a deeper league, I'm probably still rolling with Joe Ryan against the Royals at the Guardians. All right, it's a little bit tougher, not the worst matchup, but yeah, against the Royals, I think that's okay.
Well, are both of those matchups in the same week? Is that a 2-start week we're talking about next week? I think Joe Ryan was in line for 2 starts this week, but clearly that's not going to happen because he started on a Wednesday.
Yeah, he got pushed back because of the doubleheader today.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably a 2-start week next week for him.
Probably.
In which case I lean yes. I mean, it's not automatic, but 2 starts, one of them's against the Royals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the Twins have 7 games next week too, so it's gonna be a 2-start week.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, we didn't bring this up when we talked about that slugfest in Oakland yesterday, where Kyle Wright got bombed, specifically gave up, what was it, 3 home runs? 2 home runs. Oakland is one of, according to research that Saris did, Saris of The Athletic, prior to this season, Oakland was one of the venues that was going to see the biggest increase due to the effect of the humidor, the biggest home run increase during the summer months when it's most humid. And it's been especially hot in that area, like right now. That's going on right now. And it's turning Oakland into kind of a launching pad, which is not good news for Cole Irvin.
No.
or really any A's pitcher, or really. Yeah, I mean, it's going to change the thinking of players who are traveling there, specifically this time of year, if they keep, and that'll be an ongoing thing if they keep the current setup with the humidor. If they keep using them the same way they're using them this year.
Yeah, just imagine if the Oakland A's actually had good hitters, and maybe we would be more excited to pick them up and start them,
Seth Brown, 4 home runs in 3 games, buddy.
Hey, buddy, we'll get to him in just a little bit. Oh my goodness gracious, for me, Eduardo Escobar. It kind of feels weird to talk about Eduardo Escobar in this sense because he was really, really bad earlier on in the season. But as recently as last year, the year before, like there have been fantasy relevant seasons from Eduardo Escobar. And since returning from injury, he has played 11 games. He's batting .394 during that stretch. This includes Wednesday, where he went 6 for 9 across a doubleheader with a home run. 11 games since returning, .394 batting average, 4 homers, putting the ball in the air a ton, 52% fly ball rate, a 14% barrel rate during that time. 47% rostered is Eduardo Escobar. He's second and third base eligible. Those are the 2, I guess, outside of outfield, the 2 shallowest positions in fantasy baseball. And Escobar has 7 home games next week. So I'm kind of interested in streaming him if you need one of those positions. Scott, what do you think about Eduardo Escobar?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly looked better since coming back from this oblique injury. Of course, he was a fringe starter in 12-team leagues entering this season. So not far removed from being something of a fantasy asset. So he had been especially bad against or against right-handers, I should say, this year from the left side of the plate. He's a switch hitter. And so Brett Beatty was called up to, at worst, platoon with Escobar at third base whenever Escobar got healthy again. Beatty being a full-time left-handed hitter. Obviously, Beatty's out for the year now. I had wondered if that would mean Mark Vientos, big power hitter who also plays third base, has been at AAA all year, put up great numbers, too many strikeouts, but tons of power. I'd wondered if Beatty's injury would precede a Mark Vientos promotion, but that might be hard to justify with Escobar playing as well as he is now. Doesn't help that Vientos is right-handed hitter, so if they wanted to continue sitting Escobar against right-handed pitchers, it wouldn't make as much sense to platoon him with a right-handed hitter. So that kind of gets in the way. I want to see Vientos, so I guess I'm rooting against Escobar. But it looks like he's contributing now, and obviously people need a lot of help at third base, so that he might be of some use again.
Yeah. Mark Vientos, by the way, I saw he was dealing with headaches the other day, and he was scratched from whatever game he was getting ready to play.
People thought he was about to get called up, but it was a headache.
So that is Mark Vientos. Eduardo Escobar, more of a high floor play than anything, but if you're looking at streaming hitters this time of year, again, 7 games next week, 47% rostered, pretty widely available, and I'll compare him to a prospect.
Summer's Day. Okay.
What's up?
I was going to say Summer's Day. You're comparing him to something.
What else do we have here? Let's talk about Max Scherzer. He was placed on the IL with left side fatigue. So we know he left his previous start and he dealt with an oblique injury earlier on in the season. So I guess the writing was on the wall here regardless, but people are looking for replacements, Scotty. And we did get this email from Steve-O. Who do I pick up to replace Max Scherzer? Trevor Rogers, Hunter Brown, David Peterson, who I assume will stick in the rotation now,
Yep.
or Bailey Falter. And 2 of those names did pitch here on Wednesday. Trevor Rogers turned in a quality start at the Phillies. He went 6 innings, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks. He has just 1 walk in 2 starts since returning from the IL. And Bailey Falter was solid on the other side. He went 5 1/3, 7 hits, 2 runs, 0 walks, 3 strikeouts in that one. He's got a 2.72 ERA in 4 starts since returning to the Phillies rotation. So what do you think of those 4 names, Scotty? Trevor Rogers, Hunter Brown, David Peterson, Bailey Falter.
Well, I wish I could tell you I have a great deal of confidence in one of them. I don't. It's not a great time to be trying to replace Max Scherzer. Trevor Rogers, I mean, he just, since coming off the IL, he's delivered his 2nd and 3rd quality starts of the season, which is more a statement about how poorly his season went before the IL stint than anything. The quality of contact against him since returning has been kind of and he only got 2 whiffs on the changeup in the 2nd start when it looked like it looked like maybe it was going to get back to being a big bat misser for him in the first start. And I don't know. He just hasn't quite. He's been good, but he hasn't been so good that like I'm confident he's fixed, Still, by process of elimination, he's probably the top choice here. Hunter Brown, I like what he did in his debut, but how long is he going to stick in the rotation? David Peterson, how long is he going to stick in the rotation? And even if he does keep this turn for a while, he hasn't been quite as impressive as he was before losing his spot to Jacob deGrom in early August, late July, something like that. A lot of walks and not featuring his slider as much. And then Falter, it's been fine. He had 3 quality starts. His first 3 turns since rejoining the rotation were quality starts. Came up a little shy in this 4th start here on Wednesday. But was the numbers were still decent. But again, how long is he going to stay in the rotation? Because Zach Wheeler, I believe last report is he was throwing again. I think I'd rank them in the order you listed them here, which is Rogers, Brown, Peterson, Falter. Close between Brown and Peterson. But like I'm not picking up any of these 4 to put in my lineup if I can help it, Not unless the lineup the matchups happen to be especially good.
Mm-hmm. For Trevor Rogers, his next 2 matchups are against the Texas Rangers and at the Washington Nationals. So those aren't terrible. Bailey Falter's next start is against the Marlins. Is Zach Wheeler
2 in a row against the Marlins for Falter? Because that's who we faced today.
Yeah.
Or Wednesday, I should say.
Look, if Zach Wheeler is not back by next week, Falter, I believe, will be a 2-star pitcher, but he gets the Marlins and he's at the Braves. So Jekyll and Hyde matchups there. For him.
Yeah.
Don't love that.
You'd rather him just have the 1 start almost.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the matchups for Rogers are pretty good. Rangers and at the Nationals.
Yeah. Rangers have become a pretty tough matchup.
Yeah. That's fair. But this is what we're dealing with at this time, right? So like we're trying to find replacements. There's just so many pitcher injuries. Shane McClanahan, Verlander, Tony Gonsolin, Wheeler, Scherzer. It's, dog days of summer, but geez, I mean, this is really rough right now. So we're trying, I want to add someone like Hunter Brown, Scott, but for the reasons you mentioned, I just don't know that he's going to stick around in the rotation. Our buddy Steve-O in the rest of this email, he did add that Craig Kimbrell uses Let It Go as an homage to his daughter, which I guess we could have deduced that, but some confirmation. And also includes Jock Peterson used Dancing Queen as his walk-up music for most of the season.
He knows a lot about songs the players enter to.
Yes, especially on the West Coast.
Not even on the same team.
That's right. So for anyone who listened all the way through the podcast yesterday, when we were talking about bullpens, we were talking about Craig Kimbrell walking out to Let It Go and all these other kind of crazy walkout songs recently. But there you go.
Yeah.
In case you were wondering. Let's talk about a few other waiver wire pitchers. Again, still trying to find some replacements. Patrick Sandoval, 75% rostered. So only in shallow leagues he might be available. He was okay. I mean, I was pretty underwhelmed by this start, Scott. He was up against the Tigers, 5 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts, 13 swinging strikes on 87 pitches. That's a really good ratio, but personally, I was just expecting more. I started him in a head-to-head playoff matchup, so really was depending on him. He used a slider a ton in the start, 47%. That was only 27% usage entering this one.
You
But
think that'd be a good thing?
yeah, so
Uh, and look, it wasn't a bad start, but I agree for facing the Tigers, you had hoped for more. The most encouraging thing, well, the slider use is encouraging, but the other encouraging thing is 4 total walks in his last 4 starts.
yeah, for sure.
And if he can get the walks under control, then there are good times ahead for Patrick Sandoval. But as I said for that previous group, I do like Sandoval more than anybody in that previous group before, but he's still in the same category of I'm probably only playing him if the matchups are right, unless if the matchups are right or I'm desperate.
His next 2 matchups are at the Cleveland Guardians and at the Texas Rangers. And Sandoval will not have a 2-start week because the Angels go with 6-man rotation. So just 1 start at Cleveland next week for him. Domingo Germán turned in a quality start up against the Minnesota Twins. 6 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts in this one. He had 12 swinging strikes on 90 pitches. The ERA remains solid for Domingo Germán. The underlying numbers just don't really match up. He's not getting whiffs. The xFIP is 4.5, so not great for him. He's 60% rostered, and his next start is at the Red Sox. A few other names here. Zach Greinke returned with a quality start up against the Guardians. He went 6 innings, 1 run, 2 strikeouts, and he is 35% rostered. His next 2 starts are both against the Minnesota Twins. And then Ken Waldichuk was solid. That's the word I'll use. Against the Atlanta Braves. He went 5 1/3, 3 hits, 3 runs allowed, only 2 strikeouts. But he survived, which is, half the battle. He is 22% rostered. He's at the Rangers and at the Astros, his next 2 starts. So
Yeah, I feel like solid is a little strong. I was going to say passable against the Braves. Like
yeah,
he kept his head above water.
yeah, that's probably more accurate.
Yeah.
But I'd assume you're not excited to really add any of these 3. What do you think? Domingo Germán, Zach Greinke, Ken Waldichuk.
I mean, Germán continues to get it done, but in a way that doesn't inspire much confidence. I'm not really seeing what makes him good. So yeah, this is by and large a pretty unattractive group right now. I do think there's upside for Waldichuk. Keep an eye on him, but he hasn't demonstrated enough yet to deserve a roster spot.
Okay. And of all the names you mentioned, Scott, it's Sandoval and Trevor Rogers up at the top, right?
Yes, those would be the top 2.
Okay. So again, if you're looking for a Scherzer replacement, and then just one more name I wanted to mention in deeper leagues, Scott, Cody Morris, who is a prospect for the Guardians. He put together a strong start, but it was a short start. He only went 4 innings, 4 shutout with 2 strikeouts. He had 8 swinging strikes on 61 pitches. That's a 13% swinging strike rate, and he's only 8% rostered. I just don't know if he's going to go deep enough into his starts.
Yeah, he's kind of still building up. He missed most of the season with injury. Good minor league track record for Cody Morris. Another guy more in the keep an eye on him territory. I do want to mention, because he's only 60% rostered, and I know he didn't pitch recently. He pitched, his last start was over the weekend. Nick Lodolo, I think, would be a more attractive Max Scherzer replacement than anyone we've mentioned. I'd put him ahead of Sandoval and Trevor Rogers, in part because of I looked ahead at his full remaining schedule, and all of the starts are favorable matchups. The toughest one is the Red Sox, and then the other 4 are especially favorable for Nick Lodolo. And, he's just been rounding into form here recently. So he would be a good pickup, whether you need a Scherzer replacement or not.
We did get this question from T-Bone on YouTube, and he asked who to replace Gonsolin, Lodolo, Luzardo, Hunter Brown. You just spoke about Lodolo, but I think I would take Luzardo over him, Scott. What do you think?
Yeah, that's my knee-jerk reaction. Is Luzardo's the best choice there? I am curious about his remaining matchups. Let's see. They're probably going to be tougher. So he started. When did he start? He started Tuesday, just
Yes, third day. Yeah, Tuesday.
So he's got the Mets, followed by the Nationals, and then either the Cubs or the Nationals, and then the Brewers. So yeah, those are pretty good matchups for Luzardo. I agree. Luzardo over Lodolo.
Okay, fair enough. One more pitcher to ask about, and should you hold on to this pitcher? Michael Kopech made his return, but he struggled at the Mariners. He went 3 2/3, 4 runs allowed, 4 strikeouts in this one. He had 7 swinging strikes on 74 pitches, lots of hard contact, nearly 93 mile per hour average exit velocity against, and the ERA is 3.78. The underlying numbers are much worse than that for Michael Kopech. He's still 80% rostered, Scott. Before I throw this your way, his next 2 starts are at the A's and at the Tigers.
Is it in Oakland? Because that's a launching pad right now.
It is in Oakland.
I mean, I could see holding on to him in a points league as somebody could slot into a relief pitcher spot for the 2-start week. But overall, I have not been impressed with Kopech this year. The metrics on his pitches have been bad to begin with, and in his first start back, the spin was down on his fastball. Not as much as I thought it was more. Now that I'm looking at it again, not that much, but still, I just don't think he's been that good. Not as good as the ERA suggests, as you pointed out already.
All right, so let's get into those prospects, Scotty. We've got more coming here, and Josh Jung is apparently getting called up by the Rangers on Friday. That's spelled Jung for anyone trying to find him on the waiver wire. And so far in the minors this year, he's only played 31 games. He suffered a shoulder injury back in February, which required surgery, so he didn't return until August. But in those 31 games, he's hitting 266, 9 homers, 866 OPS, 28% rostered, 24 years old, first round pick back in 2019. And the Rangers do have 7 games next week, Scott. So what are your thoughts on Josh Jung, the player? Is he a must add? And would you rather have him or Eduardo Escobar?
Oh, Jung, definitely. Yeah, he's pretty close to must add, especially when you consider third base is where he's eligible. You mentioned those numbers prior to his promotion this year. He got off to an incredible start and then fallen into a slump recently, dragging down those numbers. But Josh Jung last year between double and triple A hit 326 with a 990 OPS. And the numbers were even better at triple A than double A. So he is, he's been a highly productive player in the minor leagues, a disciplined hitter, a guy who projects to hit for average and power. He was going to be, all signs pointed him to being the Rangers opening day third baseman this year before he tore the labrum in his left shoulder in February. And it's a delayed arrival, but he's here now, and I expect him to play close to every day. I'm kind of thinking people have prospect fatigue right now because I'm looking at the most viewed players on CBS, and like Josh. So I don't even know how many names are in a column. I think it's like 50. Yeah, 50 names in a column. So he's not among the 50 most viewed players right now on the day that his promotion is being reported.
Come on, fantasy baseball players. What are you doing?
Well, I guess that's why we're here. But
yeah.
But usually we can choose who to talk about based on who's most viewed, you know? Usually it's actually pretty easy. We just look at who everybody's looking at. Oh, I guess we need to talk about them. You don't even really need to listen to us. You can just go look at the most viewed players, and that's who you need to focus on.
Don't say that. Come on, Scott.
No, it's true. But no, they're people aren't interested in looking at Josh Jung's player page for whatever reason. You should be. He's a big deal.
Well, with all of that being said, Scott, I probably should use the most viewed tab on CBS more often then, because I don't ever use it. Frankly, I use most added, I use most rostered a lot, but
that's how I go through and put in my waiver claims. I look at most. I do look at most added first. It's not as up to date as most viewed, but obviously it's telling you different information than most viewed. So right. I look at most added, Scan through those names. Okay, don't need any of those guys. Look at most viewed, scan through those names. Okay, and then look at most rostered just to see if somebody dropped, somebody notable that I need to pick up,
No, it's a good heads up because I do that for most added and most rostered, but I don't do it for most viewed. So I probably should. And
It'll take you 3 times as long.
Find some diamonds in the rough there, hopefully. All right, so very excited about Josh Jung. Scott, are you excited enough to add him instead of Joey Meneses right now?
Yeah. I'd add Josh Jung over almost anybody who's available right now. I'd add him over Tristan Casas. If Gunnar Henderson's available in your league, I think I'd stick with Henderson over Jung. Henderson's going to be eligible at third base soon enough, as well as second at shorts. And he contributes some speed, possibly, that Jung won't. But yeah, I'm excited about Jung. He was, remember, I don't know, people who've been listening since we were doing draft shows in February, like Jung was one of those players I was targeting in every draft.
Yeah.
Because third base looks so bad, and it's like, okay, this might be my lottery ticket there.
A lot of people were too, Scott. Like he was set to be a popular sleeper / breakout candidate before injuring his shoulder. That is Josh Jung, again, getting called up Friday, 28% rostered, widely available if you do need a third baseman or a corner infielder. Alec Burleson is the other name getting called up by the St. Louis Cardinals. He is an outfielder, and the reason he's being called up is because Dylan Carlson was placed on the IL with a left thumb sprain, and Burleson was having a great minor league season. 331 batting average, 20 home runs, a 904 OPS. He's 23 years old, a second-round pick back in 2020. He's even more widely available. He's 9% rostered. If you've listened to our FBT and 5 podcast over the weekend, then you've probably heard this name already because, Scott, I know you've been writing about him for a while.
Yeah.
What do you think about Alec Burleson, and where are you looking to add him, if anywhere?
It's funny because he was in my 5 on the verge in my prospects report, which is like the 5 prospects that most need to be stashed in redraft leagues. He was in there for like months. And then I took him out for the most recent one Monday, saying, if they haven't called him up by now, they're probably not going to do it. And sure enough, this happens. Wasn't counting on the Dylan Carlson news, but still. Look, he's not the caliber of prospect Josh Jung is, but to maintain a batting average near 330 basically all year AAA, and with improved power from past years, like he's a guy who really knows how to hit, and that's the thing we care about most in fantasy. How much is he going to play is my main question, because Lars Nootbaar has obviously made himself an integral part of the lineup. Albert Pujols has earned more playing time recently. They are playing Corey Dickerson a lot right now. He's at last I looked, he'd been kind of hot.
Yeah.
So I don't know how motivated they'll be to sit him. Brendan Donovan has been playing a lot too, and he's heated up after disappearing there in the middle of the season. So I don't know. I don't see full-time bats in the cards for Burleson. Mm-hmm. I think in 5 outfielder leagues, it's not a bad idea to take a chance on him. But my expectations for him are lower than for somebody like Josh Jung.
So you brought up Lars Nootbaar, Scott, and I'm not ready to jump ship yet, but as soon as we, every podcast, we're just hyping him up. He has come to a screeching halt. So his last 5 games, he is 0 for 17. That is Lars Nootbaar. But, it's baseball. There's peaks and valleys. I get it. And, he was really hot before that. So now he's cooling off a little bit. But I just thought it was interesting, right? Like we keep talking him up and there you go. Boom. 0 for 17 his last 5 games. But obviously still hold on to Lars Nootbaar if you can. Scott, would you rather add Alec Burleson or Michael Toglia of the Colorado Rockies, who hit another home run here on Wednesday? He went 2 for 4. It was his second homer. He added 4 RBI, 2 runs scored. And in his small sample so far, he's striking out quite a bit, 29%, but he's putting the ball in the air. He's hitting it hard, and he's only 13% rostered. What do you think about Toglia versus Burleson?
In theory, I like Burleson more. I like Burleson more as a dynasty asset, but we're not talking in those terms. We're just talking about how much he can help right now. I trust Toglia to play more. He's been playing. I don't think he's missed a game since being called up. He's picked up outfield eligibility in the process. And obviously he has Coors Field, which will help mask some of his deficiencies. So totally is the answer.
Yeah. Next week, he has 5 games and they're all on the road. So it's a pretty ugly schedule for Michael Toglia next week. Let's see what Burleson has. He's got 7 home games, but again, how much is he going to play? So
yeah, I mean, if he ends up playing a lot the rest of this week, then that obviously changes things. But my expectation right now is that it'll be pretty sporadic how much he plays. Looking at the Rockies schedule in general, so following the 5 road games next week, he has 7 home games the following week. And those are the last home games of the year. So the week of September 19th through 25th, not a bad time to play Michael Toglia.
Pick him up and stash him for next week. That's basically it.
2 weeks from now.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now. A much lower level prospect, Scott, a pitcher for the Twins. Apparently their 10th ranked prospect in the organization, according to MLB Pipeline. Louis Varland made his debut. I don't know if he's going to stick around. He was the 29th man for the doubleheader, but he looked pretty good. And his numbers in the minors are also pretty good. So this season, 3.06 ERA, 126 whip, 146 strikeouts, over 126 and a third innings pitched. And at the Yankees in his debut, 5 1/3, 2 runs allowed, 7 strikeouts. He had 11 swinging strikes, averaged 94-ish miles per hour on his fastball, threw 4 different pitches over 13% of the time. What do you think, Scott? Anything here for Louis Varland, or you think he's getting sent back down after this one?
I don't think he's getting sent back down because remember, they just had to put Tyler Mahle back on the IL. So I think there's room for Louis Varland to stick around. And this was an impressive debut, and those minor league numbers are pretty decent. But in addition to the 3.06 ERA, as you pointed out, there's a 1.26 whip in the minors. It's given up a lot of hits. And maybe the defense behind him had something to do with that. But I look at the arsenal for Louis Varland, and that's with a V. I made it sound like an F. Louis Varland. I look at the arsenal for him, and there's not really a standout pitch. He also has a really high fly ball rate. So I don't know that he profiles as more than like a back end rotation type, despite the line here at the Yankees. I'm not especially eager to pick him up.
All right, let's take a quick break. And when we return, we'll get to the news and notes here on Fantasy Baseball Today. The news and notes. Justin Verlander threw off the slope of a mound on Wednesday. He does not yet have a timeline to return from his right calf injury. Good news for Hunter Brown, I suppose. Juan Soto left Wednesday's game after getting hit by a pitch in the middle of his back. And I saw something after this game. He said he's okay. He should be good to go. But Scott, the masses are angry. They're very angry with Juan Soto. They want us to talk about him, talk about how bad he's been this season, how terrible he's been since joining the San Diego Padres, which I can't deny. All of that is true. He's played 28 games. Well, now 29, but entering Wednesday, 28 games with the Padres. He's hitting .235, 3 homers, 20 runs scored. That's good. 6 RBI. That's not so good. He's walking a ton. OPS is 773. Yeah, he's been a letdown. There's no doubt about it. He's got 24 home runs on the season, 6 steals. He's hitting .243. He's been a bust. Like, I don't know if that's what people want to hear at this point, Scott, but he has been disappointing. There's no doubt about it.
He's been the 3rd best outfielder in points leagues this year.
I think that comes with the caveat that outfield has just been really terrible.
Okay. And I suspect he ranks much lower than that in categories leagues. Obviously, he's always going to fare better in points leagues because his plate discipline is so good. But just to put things in perspective, he has been the 3rd best outfielder in points leagues this year, behind only Aaron Judge and Mookie Betts. So every outfielder drafted ahead of Juan Soto this year, in that format at least, has been worse than Juan Soto. So I don't know why we're picking on him specifically, but I don't know. I want to bench him. Would you?
No. I mean, unless you play in a 10-team, 3 outfielder categories league and your outfield is absolutely stacked. I
Right.
can't imagine that being possible based on how bad the position is. So
Yeah, I mean, my only advice really is to start him and hope he performs better, because that's I only have him in one league, but that's what I'm doing with him in that league.
mhm. He is the 17th ranked outfielder in Roto this season, the 72nd overall player in 5x5 leagues. So, based on being a first round pick, he's been
Yeah.
very disappointing in that
Yeah.
format. Points
I,
leagues,
I
a lot better.
a lot better in points leagues. Yeah, I mean, when you have a 243 batting average and not many stolen bases. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Big disparity between the two formats.
Let's move on to Teoscar Hernandez, who was placed on the paternity list. And as a result, Gabriel Moreno was recalled by the Blue Jays. His last 13 games at AAA, he was hitting 370 with 1 homer, 5 doubles, and he is just 26% rostered. I don't know how long he's going to stick around, Scott. Maybe he's just here for the rest of the season. I don't know. But Gabriel Moreno, are you looking to add him in, let's say, 2 catcher leagues?
In a 2-catcher league, yeah, I would add him there. I don't think there's a ton of room for him to play. Alejandro Kirk certainly has carved out a spot in the lineup, mostly as the DH. But they're going to want to give him starts at catcher occasionally, and I don't think they're just going to bench Danny Jansen. So, yeah, I don't know that I'm not looking for a big splash from Gabriel Moreno to close out the year.
Gabriel Moreno, can you play the outfield? No, I don't think so. Starling Marte missed both games of the doubleheader on Wednesday, and it turns out that he's dealing with a partial non-displaced fracture of his right middle finger. He was hit by a pitch on his hand on Tuesday. So that's the official diagnosis. The Mets are listing him as day-to-day, and they don't believe that a trip to the IL will be necessary for Starling Marte. John Carlos Stanton also missed both games of his doubleheader with a foot injury. That one looks a little more scary. I think he'll land on the IL, but that's just me speculating. Brandon Lau was reinstated from the IL. Vidal Brujan was sent down as a result. As expected, Luis Robert was out on Wednesday after getting hit by a pitch on his hand on Tuesday. Eric Lauer was removed from his start due to left elbow tightness and will miss at least one start in the Brewers rotation. Speaking of the Brewers, Scott, I just feel like they're in absolute free fall right now. I know we don't talk about the grand scheme of baseball standings and just the happenings of baseball in general.
I
But
do sometimes.
sometimes. But the Brewers,
Right now.
it's not going good right now.
I mean, I hadn't noticed how they're performing in general. I know if the playoffs started today, they'd be on the outside of that. The Phillies seem to be, I guess the Phillies and Padres are tied for those 6th and 7th spots.
I think it's
And
5th and 6th. I feel like we did this recently too, and you also
You're
said
right.
that
5th and 6th. There's not 7 playoffs teams. There's
Yeah.
6. I keep thinking there's 4 divisions in each league. I don't know why. That's why I keep saying 7 playoff teams, because I know there's 3 wild cards. Okay, there's only 3 division winners and 3 wild cards. So yes, the Phillies are tied for the last 2 playoff spots in the NL, which are 5th and 6th, and the Brewers are 7th, which isn't good enough. And their offense is, well, at least against left-handers, their offense isn't great. Their pitching, Corbin Burns has struggled recently. Freddie Peralta, we don't have a ton of confidence in. Aaron Ashby didn't break out the way we hoped. So it's been letting them down recently too.
Mhm.
And that's the strength of their team. So I'm not sure it's going to happen. They are 4 games back of the Padres and Phillies. So it could happen. It's certainly not unreachable, but the way things are trending, if you just look at their run differential, it's quite a bit behind the Phillies. Not as far behind the Padres. It's pretty close to the Padres, actually.
Want to hear something embarrassing?
Sure.
My preseason prediction was for the World Series was the White Sox and the Brewers. It's pretty bad.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Technically could happen. The White Sox are only 2 games out of first. It would take an unlikely postseason surge for both teams. But yeah, it's mine was Braves Blue Jays. That could still happen. The Blue Jays are hardly the favorites in the AL at this point.
And take my fantasy advice, if you so please.
I mean, basically, if you picked anybody but the Dodgers to win the World Series, you're wrong. But their run differential is 298. The next closest team is 196.
I think I saw a tweet about this the other day where to this point in the season, I think it's been, throughout over 135 games played or something like that. They have the 5th highest run differential in MLB history. So
I believe it.
That tells you how good the Dodgers are this season. But alas, here we are. What's next? Sonny Gray will start on Thursday against the Yankees. He left his most recent start with hamstring tightness. Jeffrey Springs was pulled after just 3 innings pitched against the Red Sox. He was at 39 pitches. I didn't see anything about an injury, Scott. I searched on Twitter. I couldn't find any quotes. I think this is probably the Rays just managing Jeffrey Springs' innings and his workload.
Yeah. Well, Yanni Chirinos came back from the IL, and so they used him to piggyback with Jeffrey Springs. Chirinos was one of their a regular part of their rotation before missing all of 2021, most of this year, first with Tommy John surgery and then a fracture in his elbow. And he's kind of interesting. He was successful with the Rays before, even though he didn't get a lot of strikeouts. So in 2020, he had a 3.85 ERA, 105 WHIP, 7.7 K per 9. And, came back 3 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. The velocity looked good. The pitch selection, very similar to that 2020 season. Might just pick up where he left off. But if they're splitting a rotation spot, Springs and Chirinos, neither is going to be of much use, obviously. I'm not ready to dump Springs based on this, but it's not a good sign.
Yeah, that was my next question. Springs is still 83% rostered, but you're still holding on.
Yeah, I mean the Rays make it so difficult to play fantasy, in every aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to let us know when Springs is making his next start until probably the day of, and then not going to let us know if it's going to be a true start or not.
I think I would drop him for Lodolo, Sandoval, and Trevor Rogers.
For Lodolo, yes. I'm not sure about the other 2.
Okay. Josh Donaldson was placed on the paternity list. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa started both games at third base. Reed Detmers will have his start pushed back from this weekend to Monday, which means he'll face the Guardians instead of the Astros. If you started him in a weekly lineup league, I'm sorry. Anthony Rendon has been participating in defensive drills and hitting in the batting cage, opening the door to a possible return by the end of the season. All right. Well, we haven't heard this name in a while. Anthony Rendon, 24% rostered. Scott, do you think there's a real chance he makes it back?
I mean, they're saying there is. They had ruled him out for the season back when he had the surgery in June.
Yeah.
I'm not counting on it, but if you have a free IL spot, it's somebody else you can potentially stash there.
Sure. Tyler Wells was reinstated from the IL on Wednesday, which normally wouldn't matter, but the counter move was that Spencer Watkins was optioned back to AAA as a result. Let's jump into some waiver wire hitters, Scott. Do any of these actually matter? We'll start off with 2 corner infielders, let's say, even though Seth Brown has outfield eligibility too. Luke Voit went 3 for 4 with his 19th home run. He is 46% rostered, only has 5 home games next week. Seth Brown, as we mentioned earlier, now has 4 homers over his last 3 games, and he's 31% rostered, 6 road games next week. So I never thought we would want hitters to be playing in Oakland, but unfortunately, Seth Brown will not be in Oakland next week. Do these matter, Scott? Luke Voit, Seth Brown.
In deeper rotisserie leagues, if you're chasing home runs, they matter. if you're looking at corner infielder specifically, I would prioritize Josh Young, Joey Meneses, Tristan Casas. I would prioritize them over Voit and Brown because all Voit and Brown are going to give you is power if they give you anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
But they might give you pretty good power.
Yeah. If you had to choose one, who are you taking?
Between those two?
Yeah.
Voit.
Yeah. I think Seth Brown's been a little bit hotter recently, so I guess I would go with him, but not
You can
overly
play him in the
excited.
outfield too, where you probably need him more, frankly.
Yeah, that's true. Do either of these Yankee middle infielders matter? It was a huge day for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa across the doubleheader. He went 3 for 9 with a grand slam and 2 steals. Could be motivated with Oswald Peraza getting called up. Or maybe not. He's 31% rostered IKF. He's got 5 road games next week. And then Oswald Peraza, the name I just mentioned, across the doubleheader. He actually started both games. Wow. Good for you, Yankees. He went 4 for 8 with 2 doubles, a walk, 2 runs scored. Pretty impressive stuff based on what I was watching. He's 23% rostered. Does either one matter, Scott? IKF, Oswald Peraza.
Oswald Peraza has good upside if he can continue to get playing time. So, yeah, he matters. He matters more than even the previous group, Luke Voit and Seth Brown do. But that's only if he can carve out a regular role. And obviously, Josh Donaldson's only going to be on the paternity list so long. If Isaiah Kiner-Falefa's heating up too, that doesn't help Peraza's case. So that's a tricky one. But I do like the skill set.
Yeah, I'm not so confident in the playing time either. So, I'm a little torn on this one. I picked up Peraza in a few real deep leagues this weekend, 15-team roto leagues with a
I made sure to get him in my 15-team roto leagues.
Yeah, so
But-
if you play in a league that deep, it's worth taking a shot.
But it's more just like putting him on my bench until
right,
he can find regular playing time.
Not the last name yet, but a catcher, Eric Haas, went 5 for 5 with his 10th home run here on Wednesday and has been starting pretty consistently for the Tigers. I get it. The Tigers are pretty bad, but
yeah, well, he's catcher eligible.
He's a catcher and he plays.
Hit a lot of home runs last year. And, the overall stat line doesn't look great this year for Eric Haas. But add this 5 for 5 performance. And since the end of May, he's hitting 281 with 8 home runs in about 200 at-bats. It's pretty good for a second catcher.
Would you take Eric Haas or Gabriel Moreno if you needed a second catcher?
I think Haas, because he's going to play more.
Yeah,
is my guess.
Lastly, Scott, do either of these double dongs matter? David VR went 2 for 3 with double dong, 2 homers. He has started 5 straight for the Giants. And then Aristides Aquino, the Punisher. He went 3 for 4 with a double dong as well. He added 3 RBI. Looks like he's sitting every 3rd or 4th game. Over his last 15 games, he's hitting 250, 3 homers, 13 RBI. What once was Aristides Aquino. Do either of these names matter, Scott? Deeper leagues?
I don't think Aquino does. VR maybe. I mean, as you pointed out, he started 5 straight, which is rare for a Giants player, and 2 hits and 3 straight with 3 home runs during that time. Yeah. And this is after a AAA in 84 games, roughly half a major league season's worth of games. David VR hit 275 with 27 home runs and a 1022 OPS. It's PCL and all. And it's not like he's some highly rated prospect, but that kind of production is hard to ignore if he starts to do similar things in the majors. A third base eligible player. Kind of interesting, David VR.
All right, let's move over to some pitching. The New York Aces showed out here on Wednesday. Jacob deGrom makes it 5 straight quality starts. He was at the Pirates where he went 7 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts in that one. He had 16 swinging strikes on 91 pitches. Actually changed up the pitch mix a little bit. He's normally just fastball slider. Frankly, he doesn't need anything else, but he did mix in his changeup and curveball a little bit more. And obviously, Jacob deGrom was really good once again. His ERA is now down to 1.66. He has 63 strikeouts to 4 walks over 43 and a third innings pitched. Just bananas. The same thing we say every time he starts. And then Garrett Cole posted a season high 14 strikeouts up against the Twins. He went 6 2/3. He allowed 1 run. Those 14 Ks, as I mentioned, 23 swinging strikes on 118 pitches, 11 on the fastball, 9 on the slider. He drops his ERA to 3.20, and he leads all of baseball with 218 strikeouts. So I know I'm hard on Garrett Cole. It's because I'm just like a jaded Yankee fan. So don't listen to me when I talk about him. But for what it's worth, I mean, 218 strikeouts, that is just a massive total, Scott. So he's been good. I mean, there's been a little bit more, ups and downs this year, but he's been still really, really, really good.
I updated my rest of season rankings today. I have a new number 1 pitcher in Roto leagues. It's Jacob deGrom.
Ooh, okay. So I finally moved Sandy Alcantara up to SP1.
He's my number 1 in points leagues, but Jacob deGrom is in Roto leagues.
I mean, I can't argue with it. He's the best pitcher when he pitches, right? I'm just kind of, I don't know. I guess I'm sticking to my guns. What I said earlier on, where I'm just not going to move him up because he can get hurt at any point, which I still believe is true. But sure,
yeah, everyone can. I mean, when you're talking about 5 starts left in the season, though, I don't think it's worth worrying about at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. You know what's fun, Scott? And I say fun. Trying to rank Shane McClanahan, Scherzer, Verlander, and Zach Wheeler while they're hurt.
Yeah.
I have no idea where to put these guys. So I just left them all in the top 12, and hopefully they're back soon. I don't know.
That's at some point when you're talking rest of season rankings, I'm just gonna have to stop spending so much time on it, because it's like,
yeah,
I made this point last week. The less rest of season you get, the more radically you can adjust the rankings. If you're treating it literally rest of season rankings, anyway.
But hey, that's why you listen to the podcast, right? we break down these nuances and these rankings and all these kind of things. Other pitching standouts from Tuesday: Chris Bassett posted his second double-digit strikeout start of the season. He was at the Pirates as well. 7 innings, 1 run, 10 strikeouts in that one. Spencer Strider got off to a rough start. It's like, what's going on? Strider in Oakland, this should be a great start. But he did settle down, and he was very good. 6 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts in that one. Clayton Kershaw recorded his first quality start since July 15th. He was up against the Giants. 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts for him. Alek Manoah matched a season high with 8 innings pitched at the Orioles. He allowed just 1 run, striking out 5. And the last name here, Jordan Montgomery, was great. Once again, turns in another quality start. 6 2/3, 1 run allowed, 6 strikeouts up against the Nationals, and now 7 starts with the Cardinals. A 1.46 ERA for Jordan Montgomery. Anything, Scott, that you'd like to add on him, Manoah, Kershaw, Strider, and Bassett?
Montgomery has been great with the Cardinals, but the swinging strike rate hasn't been nearly as impressive as it was with the Yankees. He's changed his pitch mix, as we pointed out before, more 4-seamers. It's hard to complain. I mean, for the season, his ERA is barely over 3 now. So he looks like a better asset than he was with the Yankees. I just wonder about the lack of whiffs there, because that was the most impressive thing about him before the baseline, or the forward facing numbers, I guess, became so good. And Chris Bassett, I wanted to mention this for him since I bothered to look it up. Past 14 starts, Chris Bassett has a 2.32 ERA. It's been good.
He's been really good. And I was going to say that, look, basically what he's done is what I was expecting Sean Manaea to do this year, just be rock solid. And obviously that has not come true. But Chris Bassett, yeah, he's been as advertised, in fact, even better than the past couple of seasons with the New York Mets. Some hitting standouts: Aaron Judge hit his 55th home run in Game 1 of the doubleheader. I have no idea why teams are still pitching to Aaron Judge, but I'm all for it. Keep doing it, please, because he's the only Yankee that can hit right now. Dansby Swanson went 2 for 5 with his 18th home run. He also has 17 steals on the season. Vaughn Grissom stays hot, went 2 for 3 with his 5th homer. He is batting .347 with a .956 OPS. He has been amazing. Mike Trout went 2 for 4 with his 32nd homer. He has homered in 4 straight games. Max Muncy went 3 for 5 with his 19th homer. He's got 3 homers over his last 2 games. Justin Turner, I did not realize this, Scott. Over his last 49 games, he has quietly been very, very good. So he went 2 for 4 with his 11th home run. During that stretch, he's hitting .371 over a 49 game stretch. 7 homers, 28 runs scored, 39 RBI, 90 mile per hour average exit velocity, putting the ball in the air. This is basically the Justin Turner we try to draft every year, where he's hitting for batting average, solid power, good counting stats. He's been that player basically over the last 50 games.
Yeah, if he keeps it up, the Dodgers are going to end up exercising his option for next year. I want to see it. I want Miguel Vargas in my life.
We all do. We all do. But either way, I mean, Justin Turner's probably going to wind up playing somewhere if, he's playing at this high of a level. Eloy Jimenez went 3 for 4 with his 10th home run. He added 3 RBI. He's now batting .305 overall with an .854 OPS. Paul Goldschmidt went 1 for 3 with his 35th homer. And Corbin Carroll is on the board. He went 2 for 4 with a double and his first career home run. He actually attempted a steal as well, but he got caught stealing, so that would have been fun. Nice little sock in a shoe for Corbin Carroll. An impressive homer, too. A little bit opposite field. It was mostly straightaway center, but, just a little bit oppo. And against Yu Darvish, fastball up in the zone. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah. Darvish gave up 3 home runs in that game, including 2 to Dalton Varsho.
Oh, who we are about to talk about right now, Scott. I like doing this segment. I don't know why, but I'm going to have you grade the season for 2 hitters. Dalton Varsho went 2 for 4 with that double dong. He is now batting, we'll pull up the batting average, but he has 23 home runs total. And I will admit completely that I was totally wrong about Dalton Varsho this year. I just was not convinced that he was actually a good hitter, and he has proved me wrong. The batting average, not great, 243, but he's got those 23 homers. The counting stats are great for a catcher-eligible player. 66 runs, 64 RBI. He's also got 8 steals, 6 caught stealing. You don't love that. But how would you grade the season, Scott? Dalton Varsho.
This is a tricky one. I was much higher on Varsho than you were. It may have been the single player we were furthest apart on. He hasn't totally lived up to my expectations. I thought he'd be more of a base stealer. I thought he'd be of help in batting average. And yet he's been a must-start catcher-eligible player. He's played a ton, which was part of what I was hoping for. The most interesting part of this is that 23 home runs he's up to now with this 2-homer game. That's the most of any catcher-eligible player. He's led the position in home runs, which is not something I was expecting for him. So, all in all, I mean, just relative to where he was drafted, I don't think you could go any lower than B. You could maybe even give him an A. I'm going to give him a B, though, factoring in my own expectations for him coming into the year.
I was going to say B+. Maybe that's because I don't have Dalton Varsho anywhere, so I haven't really felt his production, but he's still the 3rd best catcher in Roto leagues this season, behind JT Realmuto and Will Smith, I believe. Yes. And the 86th overall player. So that's probably around where he was being drafted. So I don't know.
It was a little later than that.
A little bit later. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. It's been a good season, regardless, for Dalton Varsho. It has also been a very good season for Eugenio Suarez, who had a double dong here. He's now up to 27 homers. Batting average, not great, 233, but it has been a big bounce back campaign, Scott. And I don't think it's one that we expected, especially from the move from Cincinnati to Seattle. That's a huge negative park shift. But alas, this is the best he's looked in years, since 2019. He's not that good, obviously, but, he's bounced back.
Yeah, he has, to a degree. I mean, considering he had hit 199 the previous 2 seasons, combined batting average 199. So hitting over 230, I mean, it's a big increase from that. His strikeout rate has actually gotten worse this year too, which is interesting. I mean, I kind of just want to give him a B2. Like, yes, our expectations weren't very high, and he's exceeded those. We've seen him be even better in the past, though.
Yeah,
So A feels like too high.
I agree. No, I think B is a good grade.
Okay,
Maybe B.
he'll be the B plus.
Yeah, we'll go B
B
plus on Eugenio Suarez. His ADP coming into the season was 209.6, and I would imagine he is ranked much higher than that. And I can let you know right now, he is the 94th ranked player in Roto leagues this season. So a top 100 player, I guess.
I'm guessing because it sounds like everybody is really high in Roto, except for Juan Soto, I guess.
Basically.
And I think a lot of it is just staying. It's players who've stayed healthy all season are going to be helped by that because their run and RBI production is higher than players who haven't. So if it was like a per game, like I tend to think of players more in terms of how good are they? You know, if you're setting your lineup today, how much do you want them in your lineup? And that would be better reflected, I think, if there was a per game measure versus a year-to-date measure of production.
Mm-hmm. The counting stats are massive, Scott. You're right. Like if you stay healthy and hit 27 home runs in a solid lineup like the Mariners, you know, the counting stats are just going to be there. So that's been a huge factor for Eugenio Suarez. The call to the bullpen, we'll start with the White Sox. Liam Hendriks struck out the side for his 31st save. For Tampa Bay, they had a 1-run lead. Jason Adam pitched in the 8th inning, facing the top of the Red Sox lineup. And then Pete Fairbanks came in the 9th, and he picked up his 6th save. That is now 2 straight saves for
4 of 6
for Pete Fairbanks. The numbers are ridiculous. Like his 1.45 ERA, 28 strikeouts to just 2 walks over 18 and 2/3 innings pitched.
Basically as good as Jason Adam.
Yeah, he's 35% rostered, Scott. Would you rather take a shot on Pete Fairbanks or Jose Leclerc if you need saves?
I probably Fairbanks just because of what he's doing, what he's going to contribute in the other categories, more than my faith in him having more saves than Leclerc the rest of the way. It's not like Leclerc is rock solid in the closer role, though. We just know the Rays are going to keep mixing it up. I'm not gonna. I got so excited about Jason Adam a couple weeks ago, and then that's about the time Fairbanks entered the fold.
For the Phillies, Connor Brogdon allowed a run in the 9th inning, but picked up his 2nd save. Both David Robertson and Brad Hand pitched yesterday, on Tuesday. So I assume that they were unavailable. For the Blue Jays, Jordan Romano struck out 2 for his 31st save. For the Nationals, an epic implosion by Kyle Finnegan, who entered the game with a 4-run lead, proceeded to give up 5 runs on 4 hits and 2 walks, and he took his 3rd loss of the season. For the Guardians, Emmanuel Clase, I think we could just give him a pass. He's been so awesome all year long. He comes in a 1-run game. He gave up 2 runs on 3 walks and 1 hit. His 3rd blown save, his 4th loss. But I think even after this one, he has a 1.39 ERA on the season. So it's been amazing. And then for the Padres, Nick Martinez pitched in the 8th inning with a 2-run lead. He faced the top of the D-backs lineup. And then who got the 9th? Who was it? Josh Hader once again. He pitched a clean 9th inning, did not strike anybody out, but picked up his 31st save. Do you think we're getting closer, Scott, to Josh Hader taking over once again?
He's gotten each of the team's last 2 saves. Last 3 appearances have all come in the 9th to finish a game.
Yeah.
So I think so. I think Nick Martinez's stay in the role may be a short one because Padres seem to be turning to Hader again.
All right. To stream or not to stream, we will start with Thursday, which is Barron. Adrian Sampson versus the Reds. Jacob Junis at the Brewers. And James Caprillion. That is no longer happening. He's pitching Friday. So, all right. I'm just going to skip Thursday. Friday, we've got Drew Smyly going up against the Giants. We've got Roansy Contreras up against the Cardinals. Brian Bayo at the Orioles. Austin Voth versus the Red Sox. Nick Lodolo at the Brewers. And Herman Marquez versus the Diamondbacks. However, that game is in Coors Field.
So it is. Not loving any of these. If you're forcing me to pick one, Oh, well, Nick Lodolo against the Brewers is the obvious one. I do like that one. The Brewers are bad against lefties. Did you mention him?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That one's good. If you're forcing me to pick one more, and I don't feel great about this, but it would probably be Austin Voth against the Red Sox, with that game being in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say Bayo. He's pitched pretty well recently at the Orioles. Not entirely worried about it.
Yeah. I just think he could implode with a bunch of walks, even in a favorable pitching environment like that.
There was one other name that emerged on Thursday, Scott. JP Sears up against the White Sox. What do you think about him?
On Thursday? I mean, that's the best option for Thursday. Best streaming option. But it's probably a low risk move. It's just also a low reward move, and maybe not worth forfeiting a roster spot.
And that game is in Oakland, the launching pad. So I don't know if you want to do it. And plus, the White Sox are really good against left-handed pitching. We are.
That's surprising.
Yeah, they're not good against righties, but against left-handed pitching, they have the 5th best weighted on base average in all of baseball. We're going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.